they have sinned, and they die in their sin, and then Aaron is told what? Don't mourn. Don't mourn. Why is it that he's told not to mourn? Well, it's because, they sinned in so doing. You don't mourn sin. Now, this is kind of the same thought process. Absalom has done wrong. Absalom has been the enemy of God, has been the enemy of David, therefore being the enemy of God. David is the anointed one. He is the king. And so he's gone against God. Well, instead of being happy, everybody's in mourning because David is mourning. Rather, people are kind of put off by this, really. All right, look at what is said here in verse 5. And Joab came into the house of the king and said, Thou hast shamed this day the faces of all thy servants, who this day have saved thy life, and the lives of thy sons and of thy daughters, and the lives of thy wives, and the lives of thy concubines, in that thou lovest them that hate thee, and hatest them that love thee. For thou hast declared this day that princes and servants are not unto thee. For this day I perceive that if Absalom had lived, and all we had died this day, then it had pleased thee well. So, what does, and sometimes I want to take just a step back here and mention something. Sometimes people look at this and go, well, Joab is kind of taking a big, kind of a step here. Maybe he's a little out of bounds on this one, and maybe he shouldn't do that. No. This is the job of a general. If there's a problem with the king, the general goes to the king. This is something that should have been done. Not only that, but if you are going to be a good friend to somebody, what do? Well, you tell them the truth, right? And so Joab, I don't think he's stepping outside of bounds here. He is doing what he should do. And he goes to David and says, what are you doing? You are mourning for the enemy. And then he goes as far as to say, you know what? I kind of wonder if we had all died and Absalom were alive, if you wouldn't have just been happy about that. And that would have been pretty harsh words, wouldn't it? That was something that would be hard to hear. But that's the way that David is acting, and Joab calls him out on that. But he's saying, you are disrespecting your army, because your army has gone forth. They've fought for you. They've saved the lives of your entire family, anybody that you love. Because guess what would have happened if Absalom had won that day? Well, first things first, you go and kill off the family. Kill off any successors. You have no problems after that. That was a common thing. And so Joab says, we've saved your family. We've saved everybody that you love. And yet, the person that you're supposed to despise, well, it looks like you're loving him more than you love us, whom you should be loving. Verse 7, Now therefore arise, go forth and speak comfortably unto thy servants. For I swear by Jehovah, if thou go not forth, there will not tarry a man with thee this night, and that will be worse unto thee than all the evil that hath befallen thee from thy youth until now. Then king arose and sat in the gate, and they told unto all the people, saying, Behold, the king is sitting in the gate. And all the people came before the king. Now Israel had fled, every man to his tent. So, this is the issue at hand is, Joab says, if you don't come out and greet your people and act like a king, then by the end of the day, when night comes, you're not going to have a friend here. Nobody's going to be on your side. And so you better go out there and talk to the people. And so he goes and he sits in the gate. And so, of course, all of Israel has fled at this point, which is going to come back up here in a minute. Verse 9, this is the return of the king. And all the people were at strife throughout all the tribes of Israel, saying, The king delivered us out of the hand of our enemies, and he saved us out of the hand of the Philistines, and now he has fled out of the land from Absalom. And Absalom, whom we anointed over us, is dead in battle. Now therefore, why speak ye not a word of bringing the king back? And King David sent to Zadok and to Abiathar the priest, saying, Speak unto the elders of Judah, saying, Why are ye the last to bring the king back to his house, seeing the speech of all Israel has come to the king to bring him to his house? So he's saying, you know what? Why can't I come back home? That's the thought process. Need to come back home. Well, if you remember, verse 11 mentions Zadok and Abiathar. Remember back from 1 Samuel or 2 Samuel chapter 15 that they are still loyal to David. They were relaying messages to David for him, but they are still loyal to David. Verse 12, ye are my brethren, ye are my bone and my flesh. Wherefore then are ye the last to bring back the king? And say ye to Amasa, art thou not bone of my bone and my flesh? God do so to me, and more also, if thou be not captain of the host before me continually in the room of Joab. And he bowed the heart of all men of Judah, even as the heart of one man, so that they sent unto the king, saying, Return thou, and all thy servants. So the king returned, and came to the Jordan, and Judah came to Gilgal to go to meet the king, to bring the king over the Jordan. And Shimei, the son of Gera, the Benjamite, who was of Bahurim, hasted and came down with the men of Judah to meet King David. Now, you may have forgotten who Shimei is because, of course, you know, we're not watching this out. We're not putting faces with names here. But you remember back, I think it was chapter 17 maybe. In chapter 17, Shimei comes out and he is hurling stones at David and cursing him as they have come out. And so this is that same man. You know, he is come. Now, you know, he comes with men. It says, verse 17, and there were 1,000 men of Benjamin with him, and Ziba, the servant of the house of Saul, and his 15 sons, and his 20 servants with him, and they went through the Jordan in the presence of the king. Now, there are, you know, maybe, you know, you look at this and you think about what possibly could be going on. Bringing out 1,000 men to greet David is just not so much a show of force as it is a saying, you know, listen, I'm here to support you. He's not trying to do anything but get into David's good graces. Verse 18, there went over a ferry boat to bring over the king's household and to do what he thought good. And Shimei, the son of Gera, fell down before the king when he was come over the Jordan. And so these next few verses, in verses 19 through 23, David shows mercy to Shimei. It says, and he said unto the king, let not my lord impute iniquity unto me, neither do thou remember that which thy servant did perversely the day that my lord the king went out of Jerusalem, that the king should take it to his heart. For thy servant doth know that I have sinned, therefore, behold, I am come this day, the first of all the house of Joseph, to go down to meet my lord the king. But Abishai the son of Zeruiah answered and said, shall not Shimei be put to death for this, because he cursed Jehovah's anointed? And David said, what have I to do with you, ye sons of Zeruiah, that ye should this day be adversaries unto me? Shall there any man be put to death this day in Israel? For do not I know that I am this day king over Israel? And the king said unto Shimei, thou shalt not die. And the king sware unto him. You know, there's a couple of things that I'd like to mention here. Number one is going back to verse 22 and looking at what David repeats again. Remember, Zeruiah is who? It's David's sister. And he keeps saying, these sons of Zeruiah. The first time we saw this, you know, we see these sons of Zeruiah, they are too hard for me. You know, these kind of people, they are rough kind of people. And but we see this over and over again, talking about the sons of Zeruiah and having a negative thought process on this. Well, you know, if you think about Joab, Joab is what? A son of Zeruiah. And what has Joab done for David today? Yeah, Joab has been hard on David. Well, then, here again, you have Abishai, the son of Zeruiah, and he says, let's kill Shimei. He cursed the Lord's anointed. Let's kill him. And then again, this same thought process, man, these sons of Zeruiah, you know, here they are being hard again. And he says, look, I'm the king, and I'm going to deal out punishment. And matter of fact, Shimei has been forgiven. And, there's I think some things to be said here. I kind of wonder, we don't have a full depiction of things in the Scripture. When you look at what Shimei does, you kind of wonder if this isn't just done in haste because, well, you know what? You have made an enemy of somebody, and you better make things right real quick because you have, in recent days, been cursing the king. Maybe you were cursing the king when you thought that you could get away with it, and maybe you thought his end was coming and there wouldn't be any repercussions. But now, guess what? He's king again. He has always been king, but he's back, coming back into the city. And, I'm thinking that maybe, he is probably saying, you know what, I better make right with David. And maybe this, I don't know how sincere this is. That's my only question. I'm not sure how sincere he is in all this, and we can't know for sure. But he does have some good things to say. Verse 20, when he says, "Thy servant doth know that I have sinned. Therefore, behold, I am come this day, the first of all the house of Joseph, to come down to meet my Lord the king." So he said, "Look, I am siding with you." It's pretty easy to say, "I'm going to side with you when you're the winner," right? That's what kind of bothers me about this. But anyway, verse 24. Here is something that we had some loose ends on from earlier. But look at verses 24 through 30. This is Mephibosheth meets with David again. "And Mephibosheth, the son of Saul, came down to meet the king. And he had neither dressed his feet, nor trimmed his beard, nor washed his clothes from the day the king departed until the day he came home in peace. And it came to pass, when he was come to Jerusalem to meet the king, that the king said unto him, Wherefore wentest not thou with me, Mephibosheth? And he answered, My lord, O king, my servant deceived me. For thy servant said, I will saddle me a donkey, that I may ride thereon and go with the king, because thy servant is lame. And he hath slandered thy servant unto my lord the king. But my lord the king is an angel of God. Do therefore what is good in thine eyes. For all thy father's house were but dead men before my lord the king. Yet didst thou set thy servant among them that did eat at thine own table. What right therefore have I yet that I should cry any more unto the king? So we'll stop right there. If you remember, Ziba came out, brought some stuff to David, some supplies. And whenever it's asked where Mephibosheth is, do you remember what Ziba said? Well, he's hoping that if he stays behind, that he will granted being king in his rightful place, as Saul's heir. And so he is thinking that he's going to be able to be king now that everybody's at war. But this tells a little bit different story, doesn't it? And, this is kind of the hard thing, when you look at the Bible, sometimes you get clues and sometimes you don't. And this is one of those times I'm really not sure what to think. It looks like Mephibosheth has clearly been duped. That's what it looks like. I have a couple of questions on that, but I'm going to side with probably has been just clearly misled. Yeah, it wouldn't be hard, though, to not bathe and to not trim yourself for a while if you found out what happened. If you found out that you've been found out and you kind of get that together real quick, you can fake this. So I don't really know what to think, which, is it's not hard to be in this situation. I don't know how everybody feels these days about certain things. I think that there's certainly some good things when it comes to AI, artificial intelligence. I think there's some pretty neat things that can be used with that. We've been developing it over the years. It's pretty neat. But we've gotten to a point where things are so easy to fake that you start asking questions about everything. And when someone brings something up, nowadays I don't even know what to think. It's like, you might as well not tell anybody anything. We were talking about this on the way here. Might as well not tell anybody anything, because guess what? They're going to have to look it up, because you can't just say it. And you can't just say, well, somebody reported it, because who knows? Who knows what's real and what's not, because people fake things all the time. Well, I'm not sure what's real and what's not, but the prevailing thought here is that Mephibosheth has been duped. Now, I think that there might be some question about this, and we'll come right back to this in just a second here. Look at verse 29. And the king said unto him, Why speakest thou any more of thy matters? I say, thou and Ziba divide the land. And Mephibosheth said unto the king, Yea, let him take all, for as much as my lord the king is come in peace unto his own house. Now, if these words are true, and he does not go and take his portion, then, okay, yeah, I'll bite. I think that, he was probably very upset about this, and what he says is true. But I think that this thought process of you guys divide the land shows that there's some question even among David, in David's mind, what's going on. Well, but at the same time, I'll give you this side of it too. He has promised the land to Ziba, but he's also promised the land to Mephibosheth from before. And so in order to keep his promise to Jonathan, he lets him keep the land. And in order to keep his promise that he made in chapter 17, I think it is, he allows Ziba to have part of the land. All right, moving on. Verse 31 through 39. This is a long section. I'm trying to go through it rapidly. But David shows some kindness to Barzillai. Verse 31 through 39. Barzillai the Gileadite came down from Rogelim, and he went over the Jordan with the king to conduct him over the Jordan. Now Barzillai was a very aged man, even 80 years old, and he had provided the king with sustenance while he lay at Mahanaim, for he was a very great man. And you'll remember this. This is when I think this also was chapter 17, where he came in and he gave some supplies. It might have been even 15, but anyway, he gave some supplies, gave them some bedding and some food. But coming back, verse 33, and the king said unto Barzillai, Come thou over with me, and I will sustain thee with me in Jerusalem. And Barzillai said unto the king, How many are the days of the years of my life, that I should go up with the king unto Jerusalem? I am this day 80 years old. Can I discern between good and bad? Can thy servant taste what I eat or what I drink? Can I hear any more the voice of the singing men and singing women? Wherefore then should thy servant be yet a burden unto my lord the king? Thy servant would but just go over the Jordan with the king, and why should the king recompense me with such a reward? Let thy servant, I pray thee, turn back again, that I may die in mine own city, by the grave of my father and my mother. But behold, thy servant Chimham, let him go over with my lord the king, and do to him what shall seem good unto thee. And the king answered, Chimham shall go over with me, and I will do to him that which shall seem good unto thee. And whatsoever thou shalt require of me, that will I do for thee. And all the people went over the Jordan, and the king went over, and the king kissed Barzillai and blessed him, and he turned unto his own place. And so Barzillai is going to be able to go in, and he's going to be able to go into the land with the king. But David has allowed this. He's granted this. This is a pretty big thing, right? But what does Barzillai say? You know what? I'm old. I'm 80 years old. I don't have much time on this earth. I can't even go. If you want to talk about the finer things in life, being able to have the good food and the good drinking, and the singing, hearing the singing, and to be able to enjoy all those things. Well, guess what? My senses are dulled. I'm old now. Or Miss Lori told me to say seasoned, right? Said seasoned. So, but he says, I'm an aged man. I'm not long for this world. And he says, but here, take Chimham with you. Give him what you are going to give me. And so David says, you know what, I'll do just that. And furthermore, if it was required of anything of him, he would give it to Barzillai in a heartbeat. He is treating him well. Now, if you think back to what David has done throughout his life, he has done these things throughout his life. He's just been kind to people, usually very thoughtful in how he deals with people. All right, verses 40 through 43, there's a quarrel about the king. So the king went over to Gilgal, and Chimham went over with him, and the people of Judah brought the king over, and also half the people of Israel. And behold, all the men of Israel came to the king and said unto the king, why have our brethren the men of Judah stolen thee away, and brought the king and his household over the Jordan, and all of David's men with him? And all the men of Judah answered the men of Israel, because the king is near kin to us. Wherefore then are ye angry for this matter? Have we eaten at all at the king's cost, or hath he given us any gift? And the men of Israel answered the men of Judah and said, we have 10 parts in the king, and we have also more right in David than ye. Why then did ye despise us, that our advice should not be first had in bringing back our king? And the words of the men of Judah were fiercer than the words of the men of Israel. We'll stop right there for this evening, but they start to fight over it. This is, why is Judah bringing it back, the king, when Israel should be bringing back the king? That's the thought process. You remember at the beginning of all this that Israel went back to their tents. Well, now they've gotten word and they've come back, and only a portion of them are with the king, and they find this very disgraceful, if you will. They think that they should have been able to bring him over. It was their duty. This is the lesson that I want us to learn tonight. It comes out in different ways in this chapter, and that is the thought of being considerate. It's impossible to be considerate 100% of the time, because it takes knowing everybody and knowing what they would want and knowing, everybody's thoughts on things, and that's just kind of hard to do. Unless you understand somebody completely, that's the only way you're going to be able to do that. You're probably going to be able to be a little bit more considerate with your spouse than you are with anybody else. I learned a long time ago that, what I don't do on trips when I'm driving next to my wife? I don't eat pork rinds, okay? You know why I don't eat pork rinds? No, I like them. I'm fine with it. I grew up in the South. We ate lots of pork rinds. But my wife does not like to hear that crunch, crunch, crunch of the extremely loud pork rinds. And so, you know what? I don't do it. Matter of fact, when we have them at home, and we have them all the time, if I'm eating them, I usually stand across the room from my wife. I don't want her to be bothered by it. That's just because I know she's bothered by it, and I'm trying to be considerate, see? But guess what? I don't know what anybody else feels like on that subject here, right? It takes a little bit of knowledge of a person, right? But there are ways that we can generally be considerate. And that's what David is. He is generally considerate. He's a considerate person. You think about how he deals with Shimei. What could he have done? Sure, he could have been unmerciful toward him, but he showed him mercy, and he was considerate of him. You think about what he does with Mephibosheth. Maybe it is that he could have totally believed Ziba, but what does he do? He sides with both men, really, and says, here, you both get to divide the land. He is considerate. You come back to Barzillai. If he gives us, and Barzillai asks for someone else to take his place. But the king didn't have to do that, did he? King could have said, no, it's you or nobody. I know you, I like you, I'm asking you. But then whenever he's told, hey, you know what, I don't have much for this world, take Chimham instead. And he says, okay, I'll do it. He's considerate. He is honoring people. Now, how can we be considerate of others? Well, it starts by first thinking of others. You got to think of others. You know what? If David, the king, can think of others, you and I can do the same thing. We can think about other people's feelings, how they might feel on a subject, and try to be considerate of that. We could be considerate of each other's time and efforts. We could be considerate of each other's feelings. There's a lot of ways that we could do this. But the main point that we need to get out of this is in order to be considerate, you have to first think of somebody else. And so let's think of each other. Let's think of those that are outside the body. Let's be considerate. That's the whole point of some of the stuff that we're trying to do right now with the sending out of cards, is we're trying to be considerate of other people. We want to bring them to Christ. Yeah, we want to show them love. But that all starts with us thinking about them. And so, I know that as we go throughout, this lesson that, it's not one that we go, okay, now, this is what you need to do to be saved. But we want to give everybody an opportunity to be able to respond to an invitation. And so if you have not yet put on Christ in baptism, but you would like to do that, we'd love to sit down and study with you. It doesn't matter. We'll be glad to sit down right after this and talk about the Bible for as long as we need to. We got several people here who are able to do that and be glad to do that with you. But also, if you have become a Christian but you have not been faithful, or you've been struggling, you want some prayers, now is your time. This is your invitation. Please accept it, and please come as we stand and as we sing.